Okay, I want to welcome everyone tonight to the study. We're going to be studying about the Mishkan coverings, or the covering over the tabernacle. And we'll start out with our blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, O Lord, King of the universe, who sanctifies us with his commands and commands us to engross ourselves in Torah. Amen. All right, guys. We're tonight looking at the coverings on the tabernacle, and there's 4 coverings, and we'll be looking at all of them. Let me make sure. Okay, Exodus 26 and 1 through 14. I'm going to just start out with the first couple of verses to begin with, and then we'll work on the other ones. Moreover, you are to take the tabernacle with 10 curtains of fine woven linen of blue, purple, and scarlet, with the cherubim made by the work of a skillful craftsman. The length of each curtain is to be about 28 cubits, and the width of the curtain 4 cubits. All the curtains are to have the same measure. 5 curtains are to be coupled together, one to another, and the other 5 curtains are also to be coupled one to another. All right, well, we'll go ahead and stop right there for the time being, and I will go on to the, okay, now I wanted to bring up the point that the Mishkan, the words that we're using here, it also comes from a word, shakan, which is a dwelling place. They're all of them dwelling place, and that is also connected to the word Shekinah or Shekinah. If you're from Deep East Texas, it's Shekinah. But all of those have the connotation of a dwelling place, and of course we know that that's what the Lord had in mind. What God had in mind was that He was going to be dwelling with us in a dwelling with His people in a dwelling place. So in the tabernacle. So I gotta stop all this stuff. Okay. So anyway, those are the words that we associate with it. So when we talk about the Mishkan, that's also the tabernacle. It was translated tabernacle. So if I use that word, all right. Now I wanted to show that the tabernacle curtains. Like I said, there was 4 of them. And the width and the height that they had to span was roughly this that you've got right here. It was 10 cubits high, or 18, or 10 cubits high. It's 18 inches, so is a cubit. So it's 180 inches. So that's a foot and a half, but about times 10, it's 15 feet high, and then it's 15 feet wide, and so that span would have to cross over the 15 feet, and then down 15 feet. So anyway, that's just kind of gives you an idea of what they. How they would fit over the tabernacle. And some drawings that people have all of the curtains just draped over the tabernacle, and they're like all the way to the ground. But then some of them have the 2 outer curtains. They're pulled out and held down with tent stakes. Kind of at an angle. So anyway, this is kind of a depiction of it. All right, now the first thing we look at is that it's made of fine linen, and that denotes something that's holy, separated, consecrated, or righteous. The priests were supposed to wear fine linen, and this fine linen that they got was actually a product that Egypt at the time was very, very famous for. They were definitely that was one of their exports, I guess you would say, and they were known for the linen products that they made, and in some cases it was so fine that it was almost gauzy in effect, that like you could see through it, and a lot of the hieroglyphics and paintings that they've discovered in some of the tombs actually show that kind of give the impression that you can see through these this linen that these people wore, and evidently some of the Hebrew women had learned how to make this stuff and how to embroider it and how to work with it while they were working there as slaves in Egypt, because that was that says that you're to make this thing with crafty, with craftsmen to be able to do this stuff. So anyway, that's kind of what it that first one looked like, and let me get back down. Trying to work all this stuff with in a closet's a little tough. Okay, it says that the word that they used was is cunning work, or very elaborate, or crafty work, and the colors that they use, blue would indicate the heavens, and the red would be the earth. The purple, actually purple is a combination of red and blue, and it denoted royalty, all throughout human history. And these things keep popping up because I keep touching this thing. All right, and this curtain, this first curtain that went over it, it was you could almost, I guess you could say that it was depicted by Yeshua as being both of heaven and earth, because he was human and he was divine. And this curtain was also it was decorated with figures of cherubim, and that says they're skillfully embroidered on it so that you could see in it, or see it from the one side and also see it on the other side. And it was basically the only place you could actually see it would be in the ceiling or the overhead of the holy place, and the Holy of Holies is the only place that you could see that. And I was reading some of these commentaries that people have, and they said, well, this was it was done this way or that way or whatever to remind the people when they saw it. Well, the people never saw it. This was only something that the priest would have seen. The rank and file Israelite would never have had the opportunity to see this covering, because they weren't invited into the tabernacle, as in the holy place. Only priests could go in there, so the people would never have an opportunity to see it unless they just happened to watch the Levites take the thing apart, and as they took the various coverings off, they could see it at that point, and that's the only way that they could have seen that. So now the cherubim, they were supposed to be woven so that you could see it both inside it and outside it. Now cherubim, that's plural of cherub, and earlier in the study we had talked about cherubs, come on here, and what they, all right, this is ridiculous. I'm going to, all right, the cherubims were, they were on the Ark of the Covenant, and cherubim, not cherubims, cherubs, the cherubim were on the Ark of the Covenant, and we don't really know what they look like or how to depict them, but we do know that in Ezekiel they were talking about kind of what they looked like, and we know that the cherubim were angelic beings, and they were associated with God's holiness, and they were the cherubim were sent to guard the entrance to the Garden of Eden, so that Adam and Eve could not go back to the tree of life. And so, in I think it's Ezekiel, they talk about how that the cherubim has 4 faces: one of an eagle, one of a lion, one of a man, and then one of a bull. And basically the idea is that no matter which direction the cherub was facing, that he could see in all different directions. And they represent the righteous government of God, and they are the executors of God's righteous judgment. So as the priests ministered in the holy place, they could see above them the cherubim, the 4 faces, and these were visual reminders of the holiness of God. And the Lord continually reminded them, like in Leviticus 11:44 and 45, it says, "For I am the Lord your God, and you shall therefore consecrate yourselves, and you shall be holy, for I am holy. For I am the Lord who brings you up out of the land of Egypt to be your God, and you shall therefore be holy, for I am holy." Again, I've talked about this many times about the idea of being holy does not mean being sinless or being perfect. It means being set apart and being consecrated to the Lord. So that's what the idea of being holy. All right, this first covering, of course, with the cherubim put over the framework, the walls. It actually formed the tabernacle, and it made it one, because it had these various panels, and they were put together with little loops, golden loops that kept them together, and so it made one big covering that covered all of the tabernacle. Exodus 26:6 there says, "And you shall make 50 clasps of gold, and couple the curtains together with the clasps, so that it may be one tabernacle." And so all of these, there were 10 curtains all told on this first covering, and each one of them was 28 cubits long, and that's 42 feet, and 4 cubits wide, so that one single length being hung over the roof and down the sides would hang about 18 inches short of the ground on either side. And in fact, they were not hung individually, but 5 of them joined together to make 2 large units, each one of them 28 by 20 cubits. But this finest of all of the coverings never touched the ground. It would have been 1 cubit above the ground, and I think maybe that's even significant in that the one that is projecting God's holiness did not corrupt itself by touching the ground. And in order to couple these 2 curtains together, they would put 50 loops of it says of blue thread. They were sewn on either side of these panels, and then there were 50 golden clasps that went through the loops and joined the curtains to another, and it says so that it would be one tabernacle. Now, why the number 50? I don't know. I couldn't really find a definitive answer for it, other than the 50, of course, is the time frame between the Jubilees, because you'd have every 7 years you have a Shemitah, and then on the 7th Shemitah the next year, the 49th, after the 49th year, you would have a Jubilee, the 50th year. So every 50 years you would have a Jubilee. And this was a time for returning to one's inheritance and for slaves to be free. It was a time of basically leveling the playing field again. And I think this would sort of fit in with the idea of the tabernacle and God living in the tabernacle, that the atonement that was made each year then was leveling the playing field again for another year. But the idea of the 50 clasps or gold rings that held it together would be the idea of the Jubilee. So, all right, we'll go on. Now, the second curtain was made out of goat hair, and it was dark, it was black, and it signified the darkness of sin. The goat hair is a reminder of it's the reminder of the sin of the people, and that also goat hair. If this it could be probably could be kind of scratchy. I don't know if if I included a picture. Yeah, here's a picture of goat hair, woven goat hair, that in fact they would make their tents out of this woven goat hair. So it was pretty sturdy stuff, and but it would remind the people of their sins and of their failings. And again, this was supposed to be woven by skillful women. Now, it was a little bit larger than in size, because it was 30 cubits long by 4 cubits, and then there were also 11 of them instead of 10, so that the seams on the goat hair would not line up with the seams on God's holiness, so that the idea of the sin, our sins and so forth, are not going to line up. They're not going to be in alignment with God's holiness. It doesn't line up that way, and it's so the idea of the goat hair was that it would completely cover God's holiness of the fine linen, and it went all the way to the ground. Now, this is one that a lot of the artists will show that has that they've taken it and actually brought it out, the bottom of it out a little bit, and tied it off with tent stakes so that it's not exactly all the way down onto the ground. I don't know if that's the way it was. The Bible doesn't really tell us how that goes, but these were joined together in a similar fashion to the first curtain, but note that it was they used bronze rings instead of gold. So again, the idea of bronze is a metal or a type of judgment. So that would be appropriate for this goat hair. And the principle is the same throughout the tabernacle. The further you move away from the Holy of Holies, the less valuable were the materials used. And the lesson for us is that in the presence of God, there is beauty and purity, the gold. And as you move away back into the world, there is only judgment, the bronze, and a need of continual cleansing. So The entire length of the completed curtain was 44 cubits, 66 feet by 30 cubits or 45 feet, and was used. It made a fold in the front above the entrance, and also for overlapping the curtain around the sides and at the back of the tent. And in Exodus 26:9 it says, "You shall couple 5 curtains by themselves and 6 curtains by themselves, and you shall double over the 6 curtains at the forefront of the tent." It is also meant that the 2 curtains, this one and the one beneath, could be draped in such a fashion that their attachments did not coincide. Again, I said the seams did not touch each other. Now the third covering was now here's a goat hair tent. Okay, and when we were in Israel, we actually saw some of the Bedouins that they had these tents, and they were actually made out of goat hair in some cases. So it kind of interesting. The third skin, or the third covering, was ram's skin, and it just, again, depends on the commentators of who you're talking about, who you're talking to. This is dyed red to signify blood. Now, this could be, if you're talking to Christian type commentators, they're saying, well, this signifies the blood of Yeshua that covers the darkness of the sin. And but if you look on some of the mainstream Jewish sites, they will talk about the red signified the blood, but it signified the blood of the animals that were used to for the atonement, and that again, going back to the idea that without the shedding of blood, there is no remission of sin. So the ram, again, it represented substitution and provision. Remember that when Abraham was taking Isaac up to Mount Moriah for what he thought was going to be a sacrifice, God had provided a ram, and that's one of the things that Abraham had said, that the Lord will provide. And sure enough, there was the lamb, and then the ram. And then in the temple periods and the tabernacle, the ram was the substitute for the people. You know, you'd have the 2 goats, and one would be set free, and one of them would be sacrificed, and they were the substitute for the people and their sins, so that the sins of the people went onto the ram. So also, now the ram was used to consecrate the priests, and so now it is interesting that there's no measure given for this covering. It doesn't give us any kind of measurements for it. I guess we could assume that they would probably be the same measurements as the other, but maybe not, because perhaps this third covering, it doesn't have dimensions given to it, because the blood, certainly the blood of Yeshua, would cover all the sins, and it would take away all of the sins. So no matter how big the sin was, that the blood of Yeshua does take that away. So now let me see. I think I've got a picture here. There is a ram skin, and it's dyed red, and so you can see kind of what it is. It would have taken a lot of them, and then they'd have to square it off and make the coverings. You can just imagine, though, that these things would be pretty heavy. It would have been interesting to see how that they would get those things into place, get them up on top of these 15-foot high boards, and slide them along. So I would imagine they must have had some kind of implements, like a stick with a flat part on it, so that they could walk walk the coverings back. Plus, just a whole lot of Levites out there bringing this stuff across the top of the Mishkan, because remember that the way that they did it, of course, they would have to put the fine linen on first, and then they would have to put the goat hair on, and then the ram's skin on top of that. So, how did they get it up there? How did they walk it across? It would have been a lot of heavy work, I'm sure. Now, the fourth skin here, it says is badger skin. Now, badger skin, again, there's no measurement for this. It doesn't give a measurement. The Hebrew word for badger skins is takash, and not tukas, takash, and it may refer to a badger, or actually a what we call a dugong, or a sea cow, or a manatee. And they tell us that the dugong it's an aquatic animal that was found previously. It was found along the shores of the Red Sea. It's now almost extinct, but in those days they tell us that it was quite common. And once again, this tabernacle covering, like I alluded to, went from the more beautiful to the less attractive. And the first covering was the finest white linen woven with blue, purple, and scarlet, and decorated with the cherubim. And then, of course, this outer layer is this badger skin, or some says it was porpoise, some say, depending on the translation that you got, what it actually said. And we don't know exactly what animal it was. We do know that badgers were not particularly common in they did exist, but they were not very common at all in Israel, and certainly not in Egypt. They didn't have them in Egypt. So that kind of lends us to believe that it was more of a perhaps some kind of a marine mammal that would weather that would stand the weather a whole lot better. So anyway, that's that outer covering. Now you can imagine, if a foreigner was looking at this, walking by, or watching the children of Israel from a mountain, like what's the king of Baal, Balak, I think that's his name, did when he was trying to get Balaam to curse the people. He would look at them from a mountain, and he could see the tabernacle, and it really wouldn't be very impressive, to look at it. It's just an old tent in the desert, and yet how could they have guessed to see what was on the inside of it? The boards being clad in gold, and then the furniture of gold, and the Ark of the Covenant. And so these coverings, they point to. Now there's a picture of a sea cow. I did want to show you kind of what one of those guys looked like. But all of these coverings were a type of, or they pointed to Yeshua. The innermost with its four colors and the cherubim. The second covering of the goat's hair spoke of Yeshua and his sacrifice, and that he became sin for us. And remember that the scapegoat was carried away, away the sins of the nation into the wilderness. The third covering of ram skin dyed red also pointed to Yeshua as our substitute, just as the ram was the substitute for Isaac when Abraham was getting ready to sacrifice Isaac. then this last covering, it's again points to Yeshua, because the badger skin, it said it has it's unattractive, the outward appearance, and they talked about Yeshua being just a normal Israelite man with nothing especially attractive about him that would make us think that he was the King of Kings. He was humble in character, and we don't know today what he looked like, except that he had a beard, and he was just like the other Jewish guys. He had short hair, not long hair. He was not a Nazarite. He was a Nazarene, and he was he was so common looking that when they went to get him in the Garden of Gethsemane, the soldiers said, "Well, you're going to have to point him out to us, because we don't know. He doesn't stand out." And as Isaiah had prophesied, that he shall grow up before him as a tender plant, as a root out of dry ground. He has no form of comeliness when we would see him, and there's no beauty that we should desire him. And Isaiah spoke of the Messiah, says, "Your eyes will see the King in his beauty." And he was the sin offering. 2 Corinthians 5:21, it says, "For he made him who knew no sin to be sin for us, that we might become the righteousness of God in him." And so we do know that Yeshua took on the sins, and then the Bible tells us in Matthew 27:46 that in the ninth hour Yeshua cried out with a loud voice. Depending on your translation, again, it's Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, which that means, my God, why have you forsaken me? And there's also a whole teaching on that, so it's kind of interesting, but we'll do that another time. He says that he was our substitute, and we see that Hebrews 2:9 says that Yeshua was made a little lower than the angels for the suffering of death, crowned with glory and honor, that he, by the grace of God, might taste death for everyone. He was our substitute, like the ram on Mount Moriah with Abraham and Isaac. And John, when he saw Yeshua, when John was baptizing in the River Jordan, he saw Yeshua coming toward him. This is John 1:29. It says, "Behold, the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world." And Isaiah again, 53:6. "All we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned everyone to his own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all." And in Isaiah 52 and 3, where it says that he grew up as a tender plant, a root out of dry ground. He has no form or comeliness, the outer covering. When we see him, there's no beauty that we should desire him. He is despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. And we hid, as it were, our faces from him. He was despised, and we did not esteem him. So all of these things point to the coverings on the tabernacle. They are significant, and they have some symbolism that point to Yeshua. So anyway, that pretty well concludes it for tonight. I think I skipped over one little paragraph of notes, but that's okay, because